My name is Manoj Agrawal. I'm the group editor at Banking Frontiers. I am in charge of the magazine, the website, and the video content that we put. And I also moderate most of the sessions like this that we do. So thank you. And that's my welcome note as well. Can we have the introduction starting, let's say, with Rahul?
Hi, fellows. So I'm working as Chief Digital Officer with Clicks Capital. So if you know, Clicks Capital is a digital first NBFC, right? And so we are into all sort of loans, quite a good book size. Prior to that, I was head of digital with Max Healthcare. And I worked with companies like Aditya Birla as head of digital and Max Life as well.
So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Davis Jose. I'm from South Indian Bank. I head the business intelligence and analytics department for the bank. Before taking this role, I was a software developer.
My name is Suvajit Mukhopadhyay, having close to a decade and a half years of industry experience. Right now, I'm working with Bandhan Bank as a Deputy Vice President, and my roles and responsibilities includes IT strategy and enterprise architecture.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Satish. I am DJ's counterpart. I handle the software and all business cloud on whatever we do in the cloud space, mostly on the software side of the house at F5.
I've been associated with the Indian IT industry, mostly on the OEM vendor side for 25 plus years. I worked with companies like Nortel, Microsoft, Juniper. I did a startup of my own in terms of business consulting, then completely came out of the IT domain and went into e-learning. And I managed a small boutique firm for about 3 years as CEO in the e-learning space. And then, of course, technology called me back. I've been with F5 now for 2.5 years, currently in the role of the managing director of F5 in India. But before I stepped into this role, I was managing the GSI business for F5 for North America and Europe.
Can I ask the three BFSI people here to give one example of a digital project, a key project that you're working on that, showcases the agility, showcases either a project that you've already done that has brought agility to your organization, or something that you're working on right now that will give your organization substantially more agility in the days to come?
Frankly speaking, I've been hired in Clicks Capital to do something which is very, very innovative for the NBFC sector, right? So I created the whole D2C platform, wherein we went live recently, just on 18th of September, with a loan buy journey, which is less than 15 minutes, wherein decisioning happens in less than 2 minutes, right? So you get to know that, okay, you will get this much of amount, and in 15 minutes, you will get the amount in your account straight, right? So that was a thing. And to do this, of course, you cannot run on big product, which require a lot of license. So my job was to give a complete architecture, which is an open source driven architecture. So we created Landing as a service, as a platform, which is a combination of microservices, open source rule engine, open source workflow, and a DB. So that is what we did. And it is highly agile. I can only tell you that Clicks was struggling a lot in bringing partnership, getting onboarded. So we have partnership with Paisa Bazaar, Wishwin, India Lens, a lot. With this platform up and running, we did partnership in less than 9 days, up and running.
Okay.
So that's the beauty of the open source and the API based structure.
Fantastic. Just as a comparison, if it is 2 minutes now to sanction or to confirm, to respond to a customer, how much was it earlier? 1 hour, 2 hours a day?
No, earlier it was like 5 days minimum to come back to say that, okay, we can give you a loan.
That's a leap.
That's a leap. I mean, the bank people can vouch for it. And yes, of course, fintechs can challenge it, but fintech is only, as you know, only for personal loan. But as an NBFC, when you bring those, platform up and running, for your multi-product, that's the beauty of solution.
Amazing. Okay. Great. Maybe we'll delve into it deeper as you go
Yeah.
further. Davis, would you like to share some agility project, maybe intelligence-driven agility?
Yeah, so in the as with other leading private sector banks, we have also come up with one very what you call a product for real-time online disbursement for the personal loan to our customers. What we have done is we have developed an analytical model within the bank to arrive at the customer probability of default. Along with that, we also take the external bureau scores through APIs, and then coupled together, we arrive at the final score of the customer, then identify the customer whether he is eligible for a personal loan.
Mm-hmm.
And then we shoot up an SMS and an email to the customer's registered mobile number saying that you are eligible, why don't you take this loan? And the beauty of this is that he can avail the loan through our digital platforms, that is mobile as well as internet. And the loan amount gets credited to his account instantaneously. There is no delay because all the background process is done by the analytics team, and he's given a pre-approved sanction.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as he lodges the requirement that he's interested to take the loan, he is given the flexibility to choose the tenor and the amount of loan, which there is of course there is a cap for the lowest and the higher amounts. Within that, he can choose the amount, and then if we say okay with an OTP validation, he is able to, the amount gets credited to his account instantaneously then at that time. There is no delay in that. This product we have launched during this COVID season, and it was a very successful product till now.
So was COVID a reason for the success for the product?
No, it was not. It was not the COVID was not the reason. We were working on the background. Then we had rolled it.
And how many offers have you made? Do you have some number?
It is somewhere around more than 3,000 right now.
Okay. So every month you'll roll out a few based on business plans and whatever else.
Based on their transaction history, how they are repaying the other loans in the bank.
Okay.
There are several parameters for that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Great. So, Ajit, what is your pet project that gives the organization agility?
So recently we have launched our fraud and risk management solution.
Okay.
So what we are right now doing is we are analyzing each transaction which is happening, and then we are looking at the transaction, validating it against our analytical models, as well as a set of predefined business rules. So there are like 2 levels of filtering which is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And then we are assigning the cases with the confidence score to our fraud and risk department to take a look. So the basic idea behind that was to ensure that, number one, we are looking at only the genuine cases.
Okay.
We want to reduce the false positives as much as we can, but at the same time, we don't end up making false negative mistakes as well.
Yes.
So we came up with an analytical model to make sure that our false negatives are lowered and false positives are lowered as well. And here, we can catch frauds from various payment channels, starting from handheld device, then all the digital channels, within the bank, from the branch
across multiple channels. Okay.
Absolutely.
How much time does this thing respond?
So it's pretty fast. It's near real time is what we are almost looking at. And also we have now this, it runs against a set of around 25 business rules plus a lot of analytical models which are running behind the scenes, where each transaction is analyzed from different perspectives. And we not only assign the cases to our fraud and risk department, we also give a probable reason why it may have happened, so that they don't lose time, in analyzing that, why this case got assigned in the first place.
Okay.
So we say that, you know what, this guy has like done this amount of transaction, which is pretty unusual for a customer of his size. Or we have seen frequent, debit credits from his account for a large amount for a short period of time. And this is the transaction details.
Oh,
Why we have categorized so that, the turnaround time is considerably lowered.
so did the bank have something similar, an older version of this, or this is like
We had something which was, I would say pretty manual, but
Oh,
this is built on a microservices architecture coupled with BPMS, BRMS, as well as analytics engine at the background.
fantastic.
Yeah.
That sounds like a very, so I think all three of you have given very good examples of business projects that align business agility and IT agility. So I think we are on a good start. Let's go on to our next question then. So this is more of a macro question, and then we'll get more and more into details. Uh, Before COVID, I guess agility was not something that was specifically kind of planned and budgeted for. Each business unit, each IT division or sub IT division would do agility the way it wanted. But are your organizations now thinking in terms of an overall agility for the organization? And by I mean overall, not just IT, not just business, could include HR and compliance and risk and everything. And are they budgeting for things like this? That we want to be as agile as maybe some benchmark, and that could involve projects across multiple. Is that kind of thinking happening? Thinking, budgeting, planning. Sojit, what would you say?
Yes. So, I was primarily hired as an enterprise architect, which is pretty much a new role for Indian industry. I mean, if you look at the Indian organizations, will not find this role much,
Very rare.
very, very rare. So I was hired for keeping that in mind. And my role is to set up an IT architecture so that we can respond to businesses in a much more, I would say, faster, cheaper, better. We want to do all three, right? And we have launched a massive digital transformation program where close to 15, 16 projects are going to run in parallel.
Wow.
And, and then we are touching literally every area, be it
Okay.
transformation at core banking, transformation at treasury, transformation at digital, transformation in the middleware. So we are building our own middleware and API layers, which is now going to be controlled by the bank. And we are taking a leap towards, the next logical step will be a leap towards open banking. And we are also looking at building a massive data lake where we are going to like ingest data, big, fast, small, cheap, inside, outside, in raw form, transform them, build logical marts, and then just churn it out to business intelligence, dashboards, analytical models, MIAs, regulatory reports.
Okay.
So that's like going to be the single source of truth. We are also looking at data as a service. If we look at our say top 5, top 10 transactions within a bank, right, which are like the costliest operation, like first 3 days of a month, you go and 90% of the heavy transactions happens when you just download your account statement. So we are looking at an architecture where we can reduce these kind of transaction heavy transactions from the OLTP system to a data warehousing system.
Okay.
So we are getting data as a service from our data lake, and that's going to serve these kind of requests, because the challenge which we have, and especially with a bank like us, we have broken all our projections every time.
Okay.
So whatever we have projected, we have broken it every time.
No,
So
I've
now
seen
we have,
bank reports. Yeah.
yeah, but it's like unprecedented, unheard kind of growth.
Okay.
So, just the day we got listed, we were the 6th or 7th position. Now we're in the top 5 within just 5 years of our inception.
So does this require a lot of IT budgets, or
Yeah.
a lot of Human resources? I mean, do you need a lot of technology, a lot of human resources, or something else?
We are, it has to do with a lot of mindset, I would say.
Okay.
Yes, we are ramping up our team. Yes, we are looking at different solutions vendors, but we are, at the end of the day, we are trying to build something which will like scale for future. Like for example, when we look at our IT infrastructure, right?
Hmm.
So we can say, okay, our business can say, okay, we are now looking at say a 1 million digital subscribers.
Okay.
Now, what if it becomes 2 million or 5 million? How do I tackle that? Am I going to provision for this 5 million in infrastructure services? Or if you think of scenarios like I roll out an offer that, you know what, you come and subscribe to our digital channel, I'll give you something, you know, some kind of promotional offers. Suddenly
Okay.
the load, you know, comes and clogs
Yes.
the digital. How do we tackle those kind of scenarios?
Okay.
Right? So we are
That's
building
good.
architecture so that we don't build an elephant within an infrastructure. We don't keep an elephant, which is probably going to be used only 2 days in a year. But at the same time, it's like on-demand scaling, on-demand shrinking.
Next week you're going to get tested because Amazon and Flipkart both are coming up with massive sales.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
my family
absolutely,
are also lined up a few things to purchase. So
absolutely. Yeah,
your test, fantastic. All the best.
thank
Let's
you.
hear from Rahul. Let's say, what would you say? You're also coming to the organization with this specific objective, right? Digital transformation. Is your organization doing it through spending a lot of money, or hiring a lot of people, or how does it work? Or a lot of vendors, a lot of new vendors?
So first is a mindset. I mean, so people like us, we have to really work as an evangelist so that people follow what you say, people get influenced by your vision and everything. So that was the first thing to say that okay, fine. But frankly speaking, with Clicks, the advantage that I had was that the CEO was very clear from his vision perspective. So 50% of my job got clear here in terms of then talking about the budgets or the manpower, right? So of course, we when we thought through this, it was very important that we create an architecture which is a convincible, then scalable. So first is convincible. So you talk about an architecture which enables your audience to get understand and absorb, right? Because you are talking about something which will run in your company for next 3 years, 5 years, right? Without any hiccup. So that is something we able to sail through. Once we able to do that, then we said that, okay, fine, we have to hire people for that. So there were two aspects. One is, of course, I had the conversation with companies like Cognizant, ENY, PwC and all. If you folks know that Cognizant have done the whole automation for Bajaj, right?
Okay,
So when we explain them this concept, so my call was that either we go and give order to them, which could be X crores, and they will do everything and they deliver to us.
okay,
B, we say that okay, let us hire young folks, right?
okay.
Because we were talking about Java, and on front end we are talking about React. So we said, okay, fine, we can hire young people, and we will able to sail through, and it worked for us. So we
And it's
created.
relatively easy to, I mean, such resources are available.
Yes.
Okay,
And
that's important.
you won't believe that 60% of manpower that we hired only for this sort of lending as a service, as a platform to be built, those people were less than of 2 years of experience.
Oh, so you would
60%.
have few senior people and then lots of juniors.
Yeah. So I mean, when I say less than 2 years, you in 60%, 50% were freshers.
50% fresher.
Yeah. So that is something which the way you are getting, like bit a jolt
Yeah.
It was a jolt for other CXOs as well. I mean, what you are talking about. So, but this works. So, because young people have that passion. And when you are creating something, you're creating out of passion, right? It's a vision. So those people get convinced. Otherwise, you're all other, massive senior folks. If you want to drive through, they will come with their own experience and then wisdom, and then try to influence something which will not let
This is
you.
like softer clay. You can mold it the way you want.
Yes.
That's
So we are able to do it. To our surprise, grounds up. We are able to do that, and we are able to went live in a span of 8 months, wherein few gentlemen talked about the underwriting engine and all those things. So that is also our own proprietorship. So it's our own Delphi engine.
okay.
We run our own scorecard. We definitely fire a lot of surrogate data like bureau information and all those things, perfios for a matter, to check the bank and the income thing. But yes, we run everything on top of it, and then we create our own score, and then from there we drive. Right.
Interesting. Very interesting.
So
That's
that is
amazing.
how it is. Yeah, that is how it has happened. Agility, as far as agility is concerned, I mean, when I started my digital journey in Max Life in 2012, that was an era of talking about bimodal technology,
Yes.
waterfall and agility, right? So we implemented that. But then slowly, gradually, I moved more towards agility. And my experience says that agility is nothing but discipline.
Did you use DevOps model in all this?
Yeah. So while we keep on saying it's a iterative process, but I believe it's more of a discipline. And if you're able to onboard people and your stakeholders like that, it works. And I keep on using this statement in the boardroom also, as and when I appear for the first time. So I say that, see guys, it's business and IT, right? So if you see very clearly how IT it starts from bit. So B stand for business, IT stand for technology.
IT. Okay.
So we were always together. It is just our own ego, our own personalities, our own designations, and our own units, which actually never let us realize that we started like that only.
You're a good storyteller, Rahul. Good storyteller.
So half of the battle I win like this.
Wonderful.
And so this is how then we influence.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let me come to Davis. Davis, my question for you is this. As yours is a very mature organization. You've been there for 25 years. Your bank is probably, I don't know, 75, 100 years old. If you take the example of COVID, what it has done is forced human resources to decentralize. In most of the organizations, people are spread around and working from home. Whereas if you look at data and technology, it is historically it's getting more and more centralized all the time. Do you think that, so as an agility perspective, I'm asking, if ever there is a need to decentralize technology for whatever reason, it may be a cyber attack, it may be natural disaster, it may be a business policy also, whatever it is. Do you think that IT has the agility? How long will IT take, or can IT plan to make the IT infrastructure and the data infrastructure itself more agile, and the application infrastructure to decentralize if needed, or to change in any way if needed? What is your thinking on that?
Yeah. See, when you say about decentralization due to COVID, even before the COVID, if I were to say, in banks or any financial institutions like us, we were already engaging people, maybe the administrators of the critical applications. They were asked, they were given laptops, and they were having the facility of connecting the servers from their home. Because under any emergency, we used to give that facility to critical administrators. So they can, in case of any emergency, they were able to connect to the servers at odd hours and resolve the problem. Now, because of this COVID, people are unable to travel and all. Now, the only thing is that this the same platform what we used to give to administrators got extended to others also in the IT.
Okay.
So this is what was there already in our bank. Now, earlier it was a few percentage were working from home, and that too only when at odd hours only they used to connect. Now these administrators are full-time working at home, and the other non-critical people also, they are also working at home. So almost 50% of my staff is working from home as on date.
Okay.
So, and then the two things what we got is we got to reduce the number of people attending the office also. And then over and above that, we also implemented shift. So,
Okay.
In fact, altogether, the people who comes to the office is very less nowadays. But yeah, so now coming to your question of whether the similar thing.
Should you adopt more cloud, for example, as an example, but you may have even better
Cloud is okay, but the policies are not ready as on date because no RBI also has not come with a definite plan whether we can share the data on the cloud. So it is going to come only. Maybe my security team as to they are working on that, but still not a decision is not yet taken for the cloud because of the privacy of data, etc., etc.
Any other ways to be more agile in terms of technology and architecture and application?
Yeah, see, banks like us already have multiple versions of the same applications installed. We have a nearline data center, we have a BZP location, and then we have a DR site also.
Yes.
So data is not in a single centralized place. It is distributed in different locations. You can call it as a decentralized also. So you cannot, entire data or entire applications is not residing in a single place now. So this was there even for some time because of this COVID, when it got severe in Kerala, we shifted everything to our DR site, which was in Bangalore.
Okay.
So because now people were not able to come to our house, so that decentralization of the data or the IT infrastructure is already in place. Only thing is we are making use of those facilities now. Till now we were not able to use that.
They were sitting passively earlier.
Yeah, they were sitting passively.
Okay.
So that's it.
Got it. May I ask Dhananjay if is there a global perspective on agility of technology and applications and data that you see? What are the best financial organizations in the world doing, or how do you personally see agility?
Well, most of them have adopted agile methodology, CI/CD, constant integration, constant development. What we have seen is there is a large amount of transformation from monolithic applications to more microservices oriented applications. So the new age companies, the Bandhans of the world, the Cliss Capital, probably are already in a microservices environment where containers play a major role. Whereas a slightly old world where you started probably a decade ago, we see more monolithic applications which have now, for agility reasons, have to be broken down. And so there is a lot of modern app development that I'm seeing across industries, not just in BFSI sector, but largely so in BFSI sector, because agility, not only, I don't have to stick to my own data center. I should be agile and mobile enough to move my data centers and not. So it's a decoupling of technology and application. I don't have to, my application does not have to depend upon the underlying technology. That's a major use case. So large mainframes and large applications that were mainframe technology driven are kind of, that era is kind of completely. And we are seeing this massive decoupling. And the second point that I'm seeing with this decoupling is, now that I have taken my application and it can reside anywhere, I need to see where it is, how healthy it is, and can I manage it? Can I load it even more? And along with that comes security. And to Suvajit's point, right? Suvajit is Bandhan Bank is looking at transaction security. So they have a fraud file probably that takes care of 25 use cases of this is the kind of transaction, then decline that transaction. With the acquisition of Shape Security, we are like one step before the transaction fraud and risk comes into place. We are a hacker or a or a human being is on your doorstep. What do you do now? So step one is you kind of have to figure out whether what is coming in your network, is it automation? Is it a hacker? Is it automation hacker? Or is it a human being? So is it a machine or is it a human being? That's the first step that we need to take care of. And then when we determine that this is a human being indeed and drop all the machine traffic, the bad machine traffic, and then we have to determine whether this is a good human being or a bad human being. And once we have determined this is a good human being, we reduce the friction that we cause through maybe multi-factor authentication and so on and so forth. So very important use cases that I am seeing is around bot protection, account takeover, credential stuffing, credit card cracking, CAPTCHA, and the most interesting one was human farms. So what we have seen is, sometimes CAPTCHA, I mean, we think CAPTCHA is a very secure technology and you have to actually, the users will actually have to type in something funny that is seeing on the screen. But behind all of that, it's actually a bot that can take the CAPTCHA solving, that solution, the CAPTCHA has to be done, to a human click farm. The humans actually solve the CAPTCHA for the bot and bring the solution back up front. So, how do we detect these signals? So those are the things that I'm seeing mostly in the B2C environment, whether that be banks or retail or e-commerce, travel, tourism. These are some of the use cases that are seeing great adoption levels.
So that's an interesting hybrid way of attacking, where it's partly bot and partly, like you said, a human farm. That is,
yeah, I mean, it's very difficult
analyzing these captchas.
Yeah, it's very difficult because the hackers have become so slick that with identity theft happening so much, a synthetic profile looks exactly like a human profile. So how do we determine that the profile that is actually coming to your network is synthetic and is acting like a human being? Those use cases are growing in today's environment.
Okay, let's come back to IT and business. Let me ask Rahul, for example. You talked about the new applications that you have developed and your team. But to correspond to that, the existing applications, maybe backend, maybe treasury, maybe anything, have those also been, are those also undergoing modification? And or is their organization looking more to replace those also with newer applications, whether developed in-house or sourced from the market, ready to use, whichever way? So the question is basically, creating new from scratch is perhaps easier than transforming an existing one. So do you have a methodology for that as well?
Yeah.
Older apps?
So, yeah, of course. So you must have noticed that I have domain experience working in life insurance, then health provider side, Max Hospital, 14 hospitals in Max have, and then two NBFC, right? In all three domains, this question, as a CDO, we are supposed to, or as a head of digital, we are supposed to solve. Otherwise, it can create a lot of friction in the ecosystem also.
Right.
And you can be seen as a nut as well, rather than a
Chief IT officer.
Yeah. So how do I drive all this is that it is very important that you have to understand where you have to bring the flexibility and agility, right?
Okay.
In the big ecosystem like life insurance, in the big ecosystem like health, bank, NBFC is also relatively big, right? So there are core systems, right? So in NBFC, there is a loan management system.
Core lending system, yes.
Right? Pennant, Indus, those products. In insurance, there is a policy admin system. In Genium, there are other mainframes, right? So 23 insurance, 24 insurance company run on only 2 products by the way, till today in India, right? So now what we do is we say that let these systems only do their core job,
Okay.
right? What does it mean is that if I talk about LMS, LMS will be only used for disbursement of loan,
Okay.
which is then debit, credit, accounting and all, right? But anything to do with the customer facing thing, I will not ride on LMS, because if I ride, the change management will be very expensive, because such companies make money out of that only, change management only, right? Plus the time, by the time I want to run with some A/B testing, you will screw my happiness, because you'll say it will put it on a Jira, then put it on a release management, then I will give you a timeline, and then there will be a project, and then your delivery will
Long
be.
timeline. Correct.
So,
Correct.
so hence we balance this. But having said that, I always respect your core system. I always try to endorse that this is important. If you play too much with this system, you will flunk the
Okay.
front end as well. So it's a balance. And then, yes, of course, we have to convince the existing CTO, CIO to understand that fact, that we are not coming here to dismantle anything, to convince the CFO and the CEO to say that if we are going for this, it is not a waste of cost, it's a wise investment. Today, let's see last 3 years, how much you have spent and how much you're able to deliver. NBFCs, there are classic examples who are running purely on LMS. Their LOS also, which is loan origination system, is also built on top of LMS.
Yes.
Now they are surviving, they are doing, but they are not agile. Right?
You're decoupling, but integrating.
Integrated decoupled model, wherein I know when to hit my core.
Core. Okay.
Right?
Got
And there are some of the challenges I would like to just add and take 2 minutes more. So when I started
faster, faster.
Yeah.
We have only 15 minutes left.
Yeah, of course. I think I made my point, but I will come back to the example later. No worries.
Okay. Okay. So Vijit, in 1 minute, do you want to add something to what Rahul said? Essentially, in your organization, are you also decoupling and integrating, or is there some different strategy?
Yes, what we are trying to do is something very similar to what Rahul said, that yes, we are now decoupling even our core banking system. So
Okay.
when we look at core banking system, essentially we are looking at a payments, we are looking at GL, we are looking at deposits, we are looking at loans, we are looking at customer. So now what we are doing is we are breaking them into 5 different modular applications, so that we can also use the best of the breed solutions across each of these products. Like for example, company A may be very good on deposits, but not that strong on lending. Company A may be good on GL, but not good on payments. So we are breaking this monolith into multiple modular applications, not changing too much there. We have adopted a policy of below the bus and above the bus, what Rahul said. Below the bus means where my middleware, my integration layer lies, the enterprise service bus. So below the bus, don't change too much. The innovation is above the bus.
Okay.
Right? So you innovate on channels, you innovate on APIs, you innovate on data, but don't touch the core systems. But what we have done is we have touched it, but we have made it modular and make sure that each application only does what it is supposed to do. And that way we are also going in for a model where tomorrow, if I want to do some transformation, I suppose, for example, tomorrow one brilliant lending product comes who does like fantastic elements. I now don't need to change the entire core banking. I only take out since now they are modular, I only take out the LMS and integrate it with the bank middleware. One more important aspect which I want to cover, where we miss out a lot, is the code quality. Since I am from an technology background, for me it's of utmost importance that code quality is given as importance as my business hygiene. or my application hygiene.
Okay.
So in our DevOps model, we are not only doing a continuous, checkout and deployment. Our DevOps is you check in the code, it first goes through a code review. It passes the code review, then it goes to a unit testing, then a system regression testing, then a security testing, then it goes to the next environment. So it's a dev code, dev, QA, sec, ops.
Everything together.
Right. So that you
Great.
make one line of change and you get to understand whether it's passed the code quality, it passes the UAT, the testing, and it passes the security all at one shot. And that way we can crunch the timelines, which, where we really get crunch is not on development, right? It's on testing. If you look at major projects, the moment the development side is crossed, that's where we, take most of the time. So that's one also area which we are putting a lot of effort on.
So Satish, let me come to you and ask you the two examples that Rahul and Suvajit have given. What is your take on, decoupling technologies, coupling them above the bus, below the bus? What are the global practices that you see that India should adopt?
See, I think my first point on this is right. Your application is only as good as the infrastructure it runs on.
Okay.
I mean, you can't. You can have a great. You can drive a Ferrari, but if the road isn't good enough, right, your Ferrari will be slower than an auto rickshaw. That is the whole point.
Right.
The second thing is right. Typically, the application cannot be divorced from the infra for many reasons. If I were to take the examples of applications that people like Rahul, Davis sir, and Suvajit have written, the application itself is brilliant. If you ask the kind of work that they do, the application is brilliant. But if the supporting infrastructure does not allow them to achieve the business goals that they're trying to achieve with the application, right, the entire purpose of the application itself is defeated. Now, let me take one example of what Shwajit just mentioned. He mentioned about using APIs for breaking down the large monolithic core banking, interacting amongst the smaller modules using APIs, then doing all kinds of lifecycle management like moving the application from code to test to QA to production. If you want to adopt conventional cycles, right, and build separate infrastructure for all of them, and then start functioning in silos in all 4 different aspects, right, the agility factor is lost. Your entire purpose of going for agility and all these mechanics is only because you want to get the code right from developer's laptop into production to make money in the least possible time.
Right.
The infrastructure that supports that model, right, that is going to be very critical. The application will work on top of that infra. So things like API gateways or API management and converting the entire thing into code so that I can move the application from test to production in no time with zero touch is what is going to really give them the benefit of being agile. Otherwise, right, we can all be happy thinking the application is doing well. I know it is a minimum, the mean time to prove your innocence game. Somebody's trying to prove that I'm innocent, the application is working fine, the network is bad. The network guy comes and says the network is brilliant.
Can you give 1 or 2 examples of what you mean by this infrastructure that makes it makes the application agile, that makes the code agile?
So I won't name the organization for obvious reasons. And there are reasons for that. Let's take an example of the Amazon $1 billion day sale, right? $1 billion day sale, whatever they call it.
Yes.
It is the front end of the problem is that we expect Amazon to be geared for this kind of an infra, the kind of load that is going to hit them on the $1 billion a day sale, whatever name they call it. But that is only what you see in the front end. What happens behind the scene is a massive tsunami, right? Think of the amount of interactions that an Amazon would probably be having with all the banking infra behind the scene. The kind of calls that they're making to the backend scene, the things like transaction integrity, the transaction getting completed on time, all those factors will really matter. If tomorrow Amazon were to announce the same sale again, would I go to an Amazon for the sale? Because I'm not sure whether I'll be able to transact very clearly on that particular day. The stress it develops on a Bandhan Bank or an HDFC or an ICICI is multiple times more because there's so many people going to converge on the same infra. But if HDFC Bank were to say, I'm going to continue running the same infra, my application is doing brilliant. But if there is no way for HDFC to say, when the demand starts to go up, I also need to scale my infra on demand.
Scalability.
And when the demand dies, right, I want to bring it back out from the system and only consume as much as is required. That is the intelligence that really comes in when you build an infrastructure that understands what is really happening at the application layer. I'll give a very simple example here. Assume that Bandhan Bank wants to run an application and they're doing some kind of analysis on the transaction that hits the network. If they realize that the application is not able to keep speed with what is happening, and Bandhan Bank wants some mechanism to capture that threshold, which says maybe now I'm running out of horsepower. I want to capture that input from Bandhan Bank system, go out behind the scene and automate the process of deploying new instances of the same application somewhere in the infra so the entire load can be distributed. So all the API calls hitting one setup can now be scattered across multiple setups to address higher load. When the load dies, right, I will take away those instances so that their investment on the serving servers or computer they have invested in is managed and maintained. And while we are doing that, right, we also ensure that we do not compromise on the security policy that was assigned to the original application. We ensure that we replicate all the same wherever they are installed again on public cloud or private cloud. So for Bandhan Bank, right, it is zero touch. That is what we really mean when the application and the infra are hand in hand. You cannot really divorce them.
So that's how example of infrastructure enables that agility into the IT.
No, it is IT because end of the day, the application is the business, but without the infra below it, I mean, that's all you can do.
Okay, great. Now, gentlemen, we are kind of at the end, so I'm going to combine my last 2 or 3 questions. And these are related to your vendors. So any financial organization will have a set of vendors behind it: hardware, software, networking, support, whatever else, application development. My question is, how do you extend your agility from there into that space so that you get more agile services from your vendors? Do you choose a different set of vendors who are more agile, or do you work ways with your existing vendors so that your agility is enhanced? So supply chain agility, let's call it, from the customer to the business to the IT and digital teams to the infrastructure to the suppliers who are providing you all this, whether it is bandwidth or what a credit scores are on a real-time basis, anything. How are you guys enhancing that agility? Can we have some views from Davis to begin with? You talked about your application that collects credit scores from outside also and all that. But as an overall agility, how are you enhancing?
So here, as the earlier speakers had told, you should be able to differentiate between the various applications. The core applications or the fundamental application for a bank or for any organization which is running. For example, we are on Finacle. So that, or we have the core applications, if I want to name some of the critical applications, will be core banking, the ATM switch or the LMS. So these applications, I don't think you need to go, you have to go with a very agile vendors. Because here in case of any problems of any testing lacuna or any if you do something in haste, it may end up in a very critical problems. We may end up in a drastic issues. So these let us not touch on the fundamental applications for agility. Let those applications remain as it is. Maybe the surround application. I'm saying the core banking
need a lot of agility.
Yeah, the surround applications, maybe for the front-end application with the customer is using, maybe the mobile app, where the functionalities, what we are going to develop on an agile mode, maybe a few menus or whatever, a few modules. That can be given to agile vendors like startups or this one. There, the cost of deployment will also be less and the turnaround time will also come down. But my view is that don't touch on the fundamentals of the applications of any organization with agile vendors. Let it be with a highly proven vendor who have very good software design, practice, testing, and rollout mechanism. Because ultimately a small bug can result the application going down, the performance not meeting to the requirement, all sorts of issues will come down. So let us not touch on these, but the smaller applications, yes, you go with startups, small vendors, agile vendors, the damage, if any, will be under control.
Okay.
That is my opinion.
Let me come to Sojit. Sojit, you're nodding with Davis. But let me say, if you had to raise a notch, so I'm asking if you had to raise a notch from surround systems closer towards the core, maybe not at the core, but somewhere in between surround and core, is there some way that you can architect something that, those things in the middle can be more agile?
Yeah. So as I completely agree with what Mr. Davies also said. So what we, as I said, as a fundamental principle, what we are doing is first we are breaking the core banking into modules, which itself is agile. So now my core banking
Core
is
banking into module.
yes. So my core banking now is not going to be a big fat elephant, right? So we are going through a lean core structure. So I have my LMS, I have my payments. I mean, by the way, this is not yet implemented. It's right now in designing phase.
In the pipeline.
So, I mean, the design has already started. The vendor evaluation has already started. Now we are looking at a loan management system, a deposits and accounts, payments, a GL, and a customer. All 5 as standalone modules, and we are going to take the best of the breed solutions for each of them. So that itself is an agility within the core. Of course, I'm not. Yeah, of course, I'm not going to touch too much on things which are like working, like my ATM switch. I'm not going to touch there too much. But my core banking, I'm bringing that agility, number one, and then I'm putting my bus above the bus. I have my business processes, constant digitization of my business processes, and I am looking at 2 varieties of processes. One is the system-driven process and one is the human-centric process. Wherever there's a human-centric process, we are also trying to look at automation using RPA. Wherever there is no decisioning, it's just validation, maker, first level of checker, right? Is these kind of jobs we are trying to automate through bots, right? Recalls, anything which requires decisioning, of course, that will remain with a human being. And then above the bus, and then above the API gateway, we are, starting to expose APIs which can be consumed by my partners, my digital channels, my my consumers, and we can go like anyway. Also, we have set up a
running out of time. Can we
application monitoring system so that we can also look at the trace an entire application, entire transaction, where it has got stuck, how much time it is taking, what's the bottleneck, and so on. So that's
amazing.
That's what.
So may I ask the technology company, Dhananjay and Satish, do they have any thought on what Sujit has just described? That is unbundling the core itself. As a technology company, what is your take on this? Peripherals is easy to unbundle.
Satish, why don't you go forward?
So I think unbundling the core, is something that we are working with a couple of customers. Let me call them customers. I wouldn't just call them banks alone, but yes, some very large banks we're currently engaged with who are talking about unbundling the core. When I say core, I'm talking about the core infra that they've built around their banking. And one of the key points that we have identified as challenge between them is the fact that they feel the communication between the applications between themselves, right, over API calls is what is probably the largest problem, probably the most difficult problem for them to solve. Security is not a concern for the calls between the applications that is residing in their infrastructure, but for them, the multiplication factor of calls that are coming into the infra is a problem. For example, if I were to do a single call into an ICICI bank or a Bandhan bank, I'm sure on the back end, right, that one single call will get translated into multiple back-end calls to multiple various systems before the transaction gets served to me. That is what in technical parlance is called the east-west traffic. East-west traffic is going to be a larger problem for any banking organization or for any application that is going to go into decoupling the larger application into a smaller application. And I think our view in F5 is that our view is consistent with this, where I feel that the east-west traffic will be way more than the north-south traffic. As a result, we need to start building gateways into your environment that allows you to efficiently handle application to application communication. That is going to be a big thing. Security will always be a secondary thought in this case, because it is assumed here that the applications are within your own infra, and therefore security might not be a concern. However, these applications will have a life of its own. Think about the LMS system wanting to talk to maybe something else. The LMS system needs to also identify itself as an entity that wants to communicate with another entity who also has a role attached to it, right? That is when things like authentication, authorization, or in technical parlance, IAM is going to take predominance. So east-west traffic coupled with IAM roles are going to be the next big thing that is happening inside a data center. And with F5, I think we are pretty much geared there in terms of how we deliver on these two aspects. We are always known for the north-south traffic, but on the east-west side, with products like Nginx that we acquired, the Kubernetes integration that we built in, I think we're in a very good position to handle these kind of requirements in the future.
Great, thank you. Rahul, your closing thoughts, and after this we'll conclude the session because we are beyond 4 now. If you have a 1 or 2 minute thought on bringing your all kinds of suppliers into the agility, onto the agility cycle.
I think most of the guys have covered everything, but it's a trick even selecting a partner. So if you are, I mean, because you touched upon the partner piece also in your joint question. So there also just go through with the right balance of where you are bringing a giant and where you have to even bring a new agile startup as well. So there is a pros and cons, but yes, in your big digital transformation journey, you have to bring the blend of both.
Right. Correct. I think Davis had very clearly pointed out that certain things need to be really stable. Stability is more important for a core banking system or those kind of systems and or ATM switch or like that. So gentlemen, that's been a wonderful discussion. I would like to close this discussion. If anyone wants to make like a 10-second remark, that's something that is there in your mind, please do so. But let me thank you all very, very much for a very interesting discussion. Any 10 seconds closing remarks?
I would say that we are now in a era that we are out of debates, we are into execution. So we used to have webinars, I mean, everybody will agree, where we used to see PPT presentations, that this is how it should be. So COVID have, brought in everyone, not a fellow like me only, but all other leaders into the same frame where people are executing now. So that's the best thing that I'm seeing.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Good.
Anyone else? Any closing?
Yeah, I mean, recently I was just hearing this joke that who is leading digital transformation in your organization? It's not the CIO, CTO, or CDO, it's COVID.
Yes. Chief Transformation Officer, COVID. I've heard that one. Yes, cool. Right? Anyone else? Great.
Okay.
Thank you all. Thank you very, very much for a very interesting discussion.